What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, we're going to be talking about the Colts versus the Eagles preview before their Sunday matchup. And today we have a very special guest, a guy that I like to call my friend, one of the GOATs of Philly content. If you've been around the channel for a long time, you definitely know this man. He brings the juice when it comes to Philly content, and that is my good friend RB. How you doing today, my friend?
Derek, always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you having me on. It's come full circle, that's for sure. The first time we did this, no cameras, crappy microphones. I mean, it's been a crazy ride, man. But nah, you appreciate all the content you're doing, and I love coming on and chopping it up with you and bringing that juice. So definitely excited to chop up this game, man.
I appreciate that. Hey, I must say, I love that background, by the way. That is really dope.
I love
Where did you find that? Somebody make that for you?
I think Google Images.
Google Images. Okay. That's dope. I love that. The wings right where your head's at, the moon right above it. That's dope. That is awesome. Yeah, man. But yeah, we got a very interesting matchup here, man. I mean, I know you say you normally don't do a lot of Eagles content. You used to do that when you were first starting to build up your channel. Now you're more of a Sixers content guy. But I mean, dude, tell you what, man. I mean, when it comes to Philly sports right now, man, what a time to be alive. You know, you guys made it to the World Series. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way, but you made it to that point. It was really close. And then you had, you obviously have the Sixers, some star talent over there right now. And then, of course, these Eagles, 8-1 now. I mean, one of the best teams in the NFL right now. I mean, it must feel really good to be a Philly fan right now.
Yeah, it's been a crazy turn of events the last couple years. And, obviously I wish I could do Eagles content full-time, Phillies, all of it, man. I mean, it's just been a whirlwind of events. Obviously, the Phillies going down in the World Series was tough, but just that journey, the Eagles, I don't think anybody, truthfully, I mean, I'll keep it honest with you. Nobody expected this team to be 8-0 at one point, the best record in franchise history up until that point in the season. Hopefully the Sixers figure it out, but it's been crazy, man. And I was just thinking before we got on here, the last time that we kind of did something together, it felt like our franchises were actually in the opposite position. Like I thought, okay, the Colts are that team that's about to go nuts and they're maybe a piece away. And now I almost feel that way with the Eagles. And it's, Frank Reich's not with the Colts. So it's just been a crazy turn of events. But that's just the world of sports sometimes, you never know year to year, week to week, game to game. So it's interesting, man.
Yeah, needless to say, both of these teams have not met the expectation that was set on them during the season. I think mostly when it comes to the Eagles, I just think nobody knew what the expectation was. You either thought this team was going to be really good with the pieces they've added, or you thought that Jalen Hurts was going to bring this team down to its knees, right? Well, thankfully for you guys, Jalen Hurts has not brought this team down to its knees. In fact, he's actually improved it by a lot. So, I mean, it's been great for an Eagles perception. And then, of course, from the other side of things, this Colts team had a lot of high expectations going into the season. And sure enough, we're, middle of the pack right now, if you can even say that. So yeah, it is very wild to say the least. I mean, just from your perspective, since you're a Philly fan, what has been your thinking going on with this Colts team? Being in a negative record, firing former OC for the Eagles, Frank Reich, and former head coach of the Colts, and now they're hiring Jeff Saturday. They get their first win with him. What do you make of the absolute chaos that is this Colts team right now?
Yeah, it's really surprising to me. As an outsider, obviously I don't follow them game to game, but I generally know about the Colts, especially listening to your stuff all the time. And it's weird how sports work sometimes. A year or two ago, if you asked me about the Colts, I'd say, all right, they're the next team. Like they're just a piece or two away. And even coming into this season, looking at what happened last season, I know, probably don't want me to bring up bad memories like Carson Wentz. I've been there as well. But I really thought the Colts were maybe a quarterback away from being that team. And then coming into this year, especially the fact that I love Frank Reich and what he did for us, seeing how things spoiled over, it just doesn't make sense sometimes. And it almost in a way reminds me of how the Doug Peterson tenure ended, where sometimes the voice just gets soiled. Sometimes you need a new, refreshing voice, just something to shake it up. But it's been surprising. I expected Jonathan Taylor to have a huge year. And I thought the Colts actually added some weapons this past offseason. And I was ready for them to gear up. And I feel that Matt Ryan could be a game manager and at least be a stabilized quarterback, but just been up and down. And, now the Colts are where they're at. I'm sure you didn't expect them to be at this point. Let's just say it's been a whirlwind of activity for the Colts, a lot of opinions. I'll refrain from giving all mine just yet. But yeah, I'm interested to see like where they build from now. Like it happened with the Eagles after the Doug Peterson thing. Is it time for the Colts to kind of hit the reset button? Is it time for them to retool? What's their long-term plan? These are all things I'm amazed by just as a sports fan. So definitely interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, it'll be fun going into the offseason, what's going to happen with this team. Speaking of coaches, well, obviously now the Colts have Jeff Saturday. Still too early to determine what's going to happen of that team under Jeff Saturday as the interim head coach for the remainder of the year. But of course, we as Colts fans know your head coach well enough. I mean, Nick Sirianni, to me, RB, it feels like he is really fitting into the Philly mold now. Like he was a very standoffish kind of guy when he got there. You and I even talked about it when he got hired, and people were ripping the hell out of him for his press conference and the fact that he was so nervous and wasn't knowing how to answer questions. He just didn't look like the guy that a lot of people could gravitate to. But now, you see he's one of the most animated guys on the sidelines that I've seen in the NFL all year. He lets the refs and the players know every single time when something doesn't go his way, right? He's fitting into the Philly crowd. What is your take on Sirianni, how he's become part of this Philly mold and how he's coaching this team right now?
Yeah, you're 1000% correct. He has definitely pushed every right button in terms of, kind of enticing the crowd and just kind of fitting in and filling in as what it takes to be a coach in Philadelphia. Sometimes you don't always have to do everything the right way, the X's and O's and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to be passionate. You have to be accountable. And that's exactly what he is. And it's crazy because last year I remember there was a point when I covered this team every week. I wanted him fired. I was done with him after we started 2-5. But one thing really changed my mind about Nick Sirianni, and that was he actually listened. He wasn't too stubborn for his own ways. When we were 2-5 last year, everybody's screaming, run the ball, run the ball. And what does he do? He does a complete 180 of the Eagles offense. He actually delegates his play calling, kind of, revealing, okay, I can't do everything by myself. Like it's okay to, be vulnerable in some areas and kind of delegate that ability. And ever since then, the Eagles made the playoffs. He was the only rookie head coach to make the playoffs last year. You start out 8-0. I feel like everybody loves him. And I feel like he's locked up himself for a long time. And he's just kind of breeding that Philly culture now. I feel like he didn't really understand it, but now that he's emerged in it, you can just tell he gets it, whether it's wearing an AI shirt or, screaming at the refs or throwing a clipboard. Like he's just awesome. I actually love him. And he's actually one of my favorite Philly coaches now.
Love it, man. Love to see him getting involved in the Philly culture like that. Really awesome. Yeah, I know you and I were talking about him being like, man, it really sucks that people are being so unfortunately mean to him right off the bat, not giving him a chance to figure it out. But it's good that he's figuring it out. But we'll talk about this team real quick. We'll talk about the offense because, there's a lot of different things about this offense this year. For me personally, just from an outsider looking at the Eagles perspective, because I don't watch a ton of the Eagles games, even though I've obviously looked at the stat sheet. I look at the numbers every week. It seems like this is a team that offensively, talent-wise, it feels like they could overwhelm you just with a lot of defenses because, you got A.J. Brown, you got Jalen Hurts doing his thing, you got Miles Sanders that can have a good game if they end up run blocking appropriately. It just seems like, and then Devontae Smith has played really well this year. Dallas Goedert's doing well. It seems like this is a team that statistic wise, offensively, it's not killing teams every week, but it feels a lot more consistent and it's getting the job done a lot more frequently than what they did last year.
Yeah, I would say this team hasn't been really consistent for 4 quarters, but what they do is they can absolutely overpower you in moments. I think you're right when talking about all the weapons. This team has what it takes to be a Super Bowl offense. I'll say that right off the rip. I mean, they are talented. Really, the only question was, can Jalen Hurts be the guy? Can he take us? And I think he's shown this year that he absolutely can. Has he been perfect? No, but he's been pretty dang good to this point in the season. I know this past game was a little bad, but based off the weapons, you go out and you trade a first round pick, you get AJ Brown in here, which I will never understand why your rival, the Titans,
I
let
can't,
him go. I mean,
dude, you can ask me a million times. I have no idea why they did it, but
it was
clearly
unreal.
they didn't want to pay him, and that's why. But I mean,
It's unbelievable how money can get in the way sometimes. I mean, this guy, this is a pure number one receiver. We have not had that in a long, long time, maybe since the TO days. And I love watching him go to work every week. You talk about Devontae Smith, right? You have a counterpart for him now. Dallas Goddard, even though he's going to be on the IR now, I mean, he's been absolutely fantastic this year. And, you can see that relationship developing. And I mean, I'm out here on an island by myself every week saying this, but Miles Sanders can play ball, man, and he can run. I mean, we were a historic offense after week 7 last year. Sometimes I feel they don't utilize him enough, but you put all that together, and let's not forget who the Eagles have up front, right? Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, some of the pieces that constructed your first Super Bowl team. This is a complete offense, and I think they can go to war with anybody. And based off of how Nick Sirianni has delegated and how they, can call plays and how Jalen Hurts can operate off his feet as well. I mean, it's just hard for a defense to put up a complete performance against this Eagles squad.
Yeah, and this question might be a little bit one-sided because I think everyone can kind of make an argument for the one side of this. But do you think that this offense has gained more because of Jalen Hurts' comfortability in the offense, or do you feel that the offense is now doing what it's doing because of some of the pieces that have been added, like an AJ Brown, who, like you said, is now that number one that Philly hasn't had in a long time, and that, Sirianni now can get Jalen Hurts to do some things that normally he wouldn't have been able to do before? Which side do you think
Yeah.
plays more into it?
I actually think it falls right in the middle. In terms of Jalen Hurts, he was the biggest question mark. Could he be that guy? And there's a night and day difference from last year in terms of his progressions, how he's reading the field. Sometimes he misses some looks, but man, he's been so much better. He's decisive. I mean, a big problem, as you know, as well, with Carson Wentz was holding on to the ball too long. That was something Jalen Hurts did last year. He's improved much in that area. And you can just see the maturity level. And sometimes people in Philadelphia forget how young these guys are. He's in his early 20s and it's going to take some time. And I mean, you've seen the growth from last year to this year. So in addition to that, I mean, the pieces that you add, I feel like to make a quarterback successful for any team in any situation, you have to give them weapons.
Yeah.
This is why when number one picks, for example, I'm not just picking on this guy, but Trevor Lawrence, you
Yeah.
send him to the Jaguars, or a guy goes to the second worst team in the league. Usually they don't pan out well for a couple years because you have to get them weapons, right? Like sometimes, obviously you can see their abilities, but without a team around him, I mean, football is a team game. The guy can't win it himself. So I just think it's a combination of both. And you know how I feel about Howie Roseman. Man, he has salvaged his job this past offseason.
Yeah.
The weapons he was able to get, I don't know how it happened, but it did. And he has put together a complete offense for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's unreal.
I loved your reaction from like the last few years. You, Giovanni, a bunch of other people were all saying the same thing. Howie, do your job better, right? Like,
Yeah.
I still remember your reaction to drafting Jalen Hurts, and you were like, "You did not, Howie. How? Yeah. Like, why?" You were dumbfounded, as all of Eagles fans have been with him.
Yeah, I want to clarify one thing. In terms of that draft reaction, and people still ask me about it to this day, I still stand on how I reacted at that point in time. Like, that was my pure reaction, and I don't think it was the correct pick at that time. Now, obviously, now looking back, I'm happy we made the pick.
Yeah.
But something happened with Howie Roseman after that last Wentz season when we went 4-12. And I'll tell you what it was, because I've been listening to him on the radio. Howie Roseman is out to prove people wrong. Okay. And
Mhm.
maybe Cold Station doesn't care about this, but just in general, because I think it could apply to your ownership situation and all that.
Mm.
Sometimes when guys win, like, Howie won the 17 Super Bowl, then people see what happened after the fact, right? Just like how the Colts had a really productive couple years. Now they're kind of slipping. At some point, it hits these people when they say, I want to prove these people wrong. Everybody's calling Howie Roseman a fluke. They're saying this guy doesn't know how to do his job. So he comes out and he says, okay, I'm going to listen. I'm going to be open to the fan base. Same thing happened with Sirianni last year. Sometimes these guys overthink things a little bit, and they hit a realization point and they go, okay, let me just do my job. Let me actually take advice from other people, listen. And Howie Roseman has won the fan base back over just by doing that. And look at the pieces he's been able to add. He's not overthinking it anymore. He's just
Yeah.
doing his job. And, you kind of see where it's taken us. And, I could ramble for hours, but I mean, it's crazy. Like I said, sports are crazy year to year. You never know what to expect.
100%. I mean, we were saying, I think I said at the end of the 2021 offseason that we totally fleeced you guys in the Wentz trade and a couple other things.
Yeah.
Well, now it's safe to say Howie fleeced us. Fantastic work. And I think the difference is while not overthinking it, I also think he's been a lot more aggressive. With the draft picks, right? Going and, trading for these draft picks with these teams that are now not doing bad. You guys have the 7th overall pick in this year's draft, and it's from the Saints pick, right? Like,
Yeah.
doing all that, like that, you're getting draft picks from other teams that are bad right now because of being aggressive. You brought in AJ Brown, you brought in Darius Slay, you're bringing in all these cornerstone pieces, and I think that is what's building this team. I mean, that's one thing I think Colts fans can agree with is right now, Ballard needs to do more of that. Ballard needs to stop being conservative with his mold and start being more aggressive in the draft room, being more aggressive in free agency. That's how you build teams. That's how you build them to win. But going back to this game specifically, so this Colts defense that you guys are about to face, while it is missing Shaquille Leonard for the rest of the year, you do have a really good Colts defense that you're facing, a fringe top 10 defense. They're 15th in scoring. They're 10th in run, and they're the 8th best team at stopping the pass. They're one of the Eagles and the Colts are two of the only 8 teams in the league that are allowing less than 200 passing yards a game right now. So both of these teams have what it takes to, be able to stop the pass. So what do you feel in regards to how Jalen Hurts can attack this Colts defense, which has been getting better pressure on the quarterback? You have guys like Stephon Gilmore and Isaiah Rodgers who are playing out of their minds right now. And Bobby Okereke, who, by the way, is actually, if you look off PFF's ratings, is the 2nd best linebacker in the entire NFL right now. What do you think Jalen Hurts and this offense needs to do to take advantage?
Yeah, I think what needs to happen is the Eagles need to come out and establish the run. Now, this past week was definitely a wake-up call, and Eagles fans probably won't tell you, but I will. This is probably, I'm not going to say we're worried, but this is probably going to be the most interesting game of the year because we haven't seen the Eagles hit adversity. How can they bounce back from a loss? And I think any Eagles fan will tell you we should have won that game, right? We made too many mistakes. We're leading the turnover differential by like 5. It's been ridiculous this year. And we turned the ball over 4 times. You can't do that. But what happened in that game, and I preach this every week, like I said, Miles Sanders needs to be established. Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, and the Eagles are going up against a really good run defense, which worries me. It worries me because what is going to happen, or I believe is that they're going to try to let Jalen Hurts win the game in the air. And while he can do that, it's going to take time for him to really be trusted in that area. I'm not saying he can't do it, but you have to have a balanced offense. And going up against the Colts, now that you guys have a win under your belt with a new head coach, all right, an 8-1 team doesn't really want to go up against that because Jeff Saturday, I mean, what does he have to lose right now, right?
Yeah, the Colts don't have anything to lose. The Eagles have everything to lose right now.
Exactly. And when you're looking at the playoff standings and how the the bracket is now, where you got to be the top team, right, to get the bye and the home field. Like the Vikings are right behind us. So,
Mhm.
you know, to me, this Colts team is, I mean, they can be scary on any given Sunday. I truly believe in that meaning, any given Sunday. And the Colts really don't have a lot to lose right now. While the Eagles, everybody's looking to see how do they bounce back. But yeah, I think the Eagles need to get a couple big plays going early. Right now, we're historically the best second quarter team of all time.
Mm.
That's what the Eagles have done this year. Every second quarter, they just go out of their mind. And like I said, it hasn't been consistent where you get to the third and fourth quarter, you kind of slow down a little bit. But this past Monday was the first time the Eagles were playing from behind, and it's just a different mindset that you have. So it's going to be tough. I hope they don't come out trying to throw the ball the first 10 plays of the game again, because I think to win in this league, you have to let the run set up the pass. And I just think the Colts have playmakers. Like you just named some of them off. They're filled with playmakers. I feel like the Colts have more talent than their record shows, if that makes sense.
Oh,
And
100%, especially on the defensive side of things. I mean, people always say, oh, the Colts, they're such a trash team. No, it's really their offense that's been the
yeah,
biggest problem all year, which we'll get into in a second. But this defense has been phenomenal. I mean, and
yeah,
the one thing that's been the key to stopping the run for us, his name is Grover Stewart. And he's actually had the most tackles for negative yards against the run of any defensive lineman in all of the NFL.
yeah.
So he has established himself that if you put him man to man and you try to run a zone block, he's going to blow up whatever guard he goes across. So you better hope that whatever Sirianni does, and I know Sirianni knows who Grover Stewart is, so I would not be surprised if they double team him all game long when they're trying to run the football, because Grover Stewart can kill a drive with doing that. So that'll be interesting. It'll be fun to watch what you guys can do offensively, because like you said, it's a well-balanced team from how you guys do things. AJ Brown, I hate the fact that we traded him away and we still have to play him somehow. I freaking hate that. But going to the Colts side of things offensively and your defense, can you tell me who's not going to be available for your defense? I heard Jordan Davis is not going to play. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jordan Davis has been out for a couple weeks, and people haven't really realized how big of an impact that is as a rookie who struggled to get in the first couple games, but he's been missed. Our run defense has been putrid, especially over the last 3-4 weeks. He's been a huge miss. And while I just talked about the offense, I'm confident in the offense to come out and execute a game plan. Right now, in terms of the defense, a guy you guys know well named Jonathan Gannon. We've had our ups and downs. I'm worried about him, honestly. I think he could be the Achilles heel of this team. But other than we'll get into that in a second. But other than Jordan Davis, I think everybody should be good. I know Hassan Reddick has been questionable. A couple guys are banged up. A couple guys are getting older, right? Like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. They're not as effective. The Eagles have playmakers, and an upgraded secondary, but with the way they are utilized, that's where the concern comes in for me. And it's not just this week, it's every week. And, it could be a problem, especially if you're going up against a guy like Matt Ryan who can manage a game. I feel the key is to be aggressive. And I feel that every week, but sometimes it's just not there.
Yeah, so the Colts scored 10 points in the first quarter last week against the Raiders. The most points they have scored in the first quarter of any game this season. Ironically enough, that is, I think that is how many points, or that's more points than what the Colts have scored the previous 5 weeks going into that game in the first quarter. Like this team in the first 3 quarters of action through the first 9 weeks, not including this last week, but the first 9 weeks, the worst offense that has ever been in Indianapolis, ever. It was truly astounding how bad this offense has been. And it's been a collection of a lot of things. One, we said that, Frank Reich was making things too complex. He wasn't really getting the schemes down right, wasn't play calling very well. That was a problem. But the biggest problem we had was this offensive line before this week had given up 35 sacks in the first 9 weeks of the season. So they were giving up 4 sacks a game on average. And it was atop the league. It made it look so atrocious. This O-line has never found a mixture that has worked to protect Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan's just been getting killed. They got Sam Ehlinger killed against New England when they gave up 9 sacks in that game. I mean, it's truly remarkable how bad this team was, RB. And when we played against the Raiders, right? We only gave up 1 sack, and it was mainly on Matt Ryan for that being the problem. Because Matt Ryan, for some weird reason, thought he could roll out to the left, turning his back to the D line, like as if he's Lamar Jackson or something. But anyways, it looked the best it had all year long. Now we were playing against the Raiders. I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, They do have Chandler Jones. They got Max Crosby, so I felt pretty decent about it. But, you're going into this and, you got Javon Hargrave, you got Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, all guys who have had 4 or more sacks on this defensive line this year. I mean, you got some guys that can get after the passer. So how do you feel about your team being able to generate pressure on this Colts O-line that up until last week was the worst offensive line in football?
So taken from this conversation, and this is how I feel every single week, and I'm sure any Eagles fan will tell you the same. I have no, I have no lack of confidence in the Eagle generating pressure. I know they can do it. They have playmakers. They can dial up whatever they need to. The problem is Jonathan Gannon. He gets so conservative and he plays his guys 10 yards off his men and he only rushes 4. And he'll do that for almost an entire game. And it just doesn't make sense. Based off what you just told me, I mean, if Jonathan Gannon is listening, he needs to generate some pressure early on in this game.
Yeah.
And he's done it at points this year. I've seen growth from last year, but there's no excuse for coming out on a Monday night game and letting Taylor Heineke sit all comfortable back in the pocket. It makes no sense. The Eagles try to rely on their front 4 because of how good they are. However, they need to dial up some different looks. They need to get pressure because, Matt Ryan can manage a game, but once you start getting to him, I mean, I don't think he's the same quarterback. And I mean, the Eagles just have too many playmakers. They have too many weapons. And like you just said, he's not mobile. I mean, he's a guy who's just going to sit back there and try to dial some things up. So, I have no lack of confidence in terms of the Eagles' talent getting to Matt Ryan. It's just, what kind of game plan will they come out with? Will Jonathan Gannon wake up and realize that he can make a quarterback very uncomfortable early in the game and set the tone? So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
It's funny because all Colts fans that'll listen to this will be like, are you sure you're not talking about Gus Bradley of the Indianapolis Colts? It feels the same way for us a lot. We don't dial up a lot of blitzes, man. We mainly rely on that front 4 in that coverage scheme. So I totally get it. But you mentioned it, how you don't feel confident in this Eagles running defense. I mean, Jonathan Taylor just came back last week and had his best game of the year, 22 carries for 150 yards, had a touchdown from 66 yards away. Really started showing the Jonathan Taylor that Colts fans remembered from last year. And a lot of that was due to the fact that the Colts O-line was actually moving some people last week, and it allowed Jonathan Taylor to be the old Jonathan Taylor. Hearing that from what I'm telling you from this last week, does that make you even more worried about this Eagles defense, or do you think that they can still handle business?
No, it definitely makes me worried. And I know people, if there's Eagles fans that watch it, still think I'm complaining, but it's just true. I feel like we've had these concerns all year. Yes, the Eagles defense has only been giving up 17 points a game up until this last game. But the thing is, the secondary is much improved. All right. Not only do you have Darius Slay, I've been screaming this for years now. Get him another suitable cornerback. James Bradbury has done a fantastic job.
I was praying to God we would go and get him to add with Stephon Gilmore.
He's been so good.
Oh,
so good. And then
so
you have
good.
Marcus Epps who's stepping up. And can we talk just for 1 second? CJ Gardner-Johnson. We picked him up, the day before the season began?
Yeah.
He's had an interception now in 5 straight games. First Eagle to ever do that, by the way. and he's had 6 in the last 5 games. Talk about an insane pickup, and we got him for like a 6th-round pick or a 5th-round
Yeah.
pick. It's insane, man. I'm
The
telling you.
greatest return ever for you
Yeah.
guys.
So we're giving up 17 points a game, but it's because our talent and our secondary has finally been upgraded. Now, our run defense has been a staple for the last, 3, 4 years. It's one of the reasons we won the Super Bowl. These guys wouldn't give up anything. There were no holes at all. But the last 3, 4 weeks, we're giving up, 100 yards a game or more, I believe. And a lot of holes. And, it's just been shaky. It hasn't looked right. And when you talk about Jonathan Taylor getting hot at the right time, a guy that was an MVP candidate last year, it definitely concerns me because one way to beat the Eagles is to keep our high-powered offense off the field. And Fletcher Cox was just talking about Monday night. He said, it's the most tired I've ever felt. He was on the field for like 70 snaps,
Yeah.
and it's a short week. So, I mean, if the Colts get running early and they're going downhill and they're keeping Jalen Hurts and the offense off the field, because I don't know if you watched the game, it was maybe the biggest disparity I've ever seen with time of possession. I think
Yeah, I heard you guys, your defense was on the field for like 80 plays on
yeah,
Monday.
we had 6 minutes of possession in the first half, which was just
Jeez,
absolutely
man.
insane. And yeah,
That's insane.
it was nuts. So and it's a short week, like I said. So we're going to be tired. And if Jonathan Taylor gets going, it could be a bad result for the Eagles, to be honest.
And yeah, he's been out for 3 games this year because of injury. So, I mean, needless to say, he's healthy now and he does not have a lot of tread on him right now. So he is going to be feeling it. And yeah, Colts fans, I mean, that's the key to the win for us is to be able to establish the ground and pound. Because like you said, your rush defense is actually the 20th best in the NFL. You guys give up 124 yards per game rushing versus the Colts, who are the 10th best with 110. So, the difference there is definitely big. But then when you look at, your passing defense, like you said, it's the second best in the league. You guys are only allowing 177 yards per game in the passing department. I mean, and not enough can be said about this team for you guys, because the only starter for you guys that has not had an interception this year has in the secondary has been Marcus Epps. Every other one of your guys has been forcing turnovers. Maddox has 1. Slay and Bradbury both have 3. We both know how good they are. And like you said, Gardner Johnson just on an absolute tear recently. Very concerning for me as a Colts fan, because like you said, I mean, as good as your secondary is, you got a bunch of young wide receivers on this Colts team right now that are just trying to find ways to get to scrap things out. And, outside of this, even this last week, I mean, the Colts didn't do anything drastic to win that game through the passing way. I don't even think Matt Ryan threw a pass of over 20 yards in that game. I don't even think he threw one. Everything was within 20 yards, everything. So, I mean, I'd imagine that's probably what it's going to be again this week, because it concerns the hell out of me that, if we try to throw it deep, even with the size and the speed of some of these wide receivers that we have, Pittman's 6'4", he can jump, he can high point anyone. Alec Pierce has proven he can do that. Paris Campbell has 4.3 speed. I mean, he's got the speed that very few corners can hang with. But, going deep, I just don't know. I'm very concerned about that.
I agree. And that could, that could be a key for you guys because, again, like it's all on the mindset that Jonathan Gannon comes out with. When he lets Slay go at his man, when he lets Bradbury go at his man, these guys are almost untouchable. Like they've been nearly perfect. And, again, this last week, a lot of zone coverage, a lot of soft coverage. It's frustrating given the talent that we have. Even if our run gaps are not getting filled and we're not stopping the run, the guys we have on the outside can absolutely be locked down if you let them play to their ability. So, I think that should be the key for the Colts. Like you said, I think they should try to establish the run and, try to just take what the defense gives you, I guess, depending on how Gannon comes out. But I'm definitely interested about the Matt Ryan thing, and I wanted to get your take on it. I know this is your, game preview stuff, but just an outsider looking in, right? You look at the Colts; they're 4-5-1, and I thought it was interesting. the fact that Saturday went with Matt Ryan, because then the question to me, just an outsider, is does he think the season is salvageable? Like, what was the reasoning for going back to the vet? Or maybe he's just trying to, win his first game or whatever it is. Maybe he thinks Matt Ryan is the more suitable quarterback. But is that going to be a long-term thing? And why do you think, and are you happy with the fact that they went back instead of maybe trying to let a younger guy develop? Like, I just want your take on that.
Yeah, Jeff Saturday even came out and said after that he felt Matt Ryan was the best chance for us to win. At the end of the day, Jeff Saturday is doing this because Jeff Saturday is trying to give Jim Irsay a reason to hire him at the end of the season. He wants to win. He loves this program because he was part of this program just 10 short years ago. This guy was winning Super Bowls in this building. So, he loves this thing and he wants to win. And that's what the Colts are all about right now. Even with as bad a situation as they're in, they want to win. And I do believe that Matt Ryan gives us the best chance to win week in and week out. He may have been reckless with the ball early in the season. He may have been getting sacked all the time. He wasn't part of those were on him. Part of them were on the O-line. It was clear things were not working, but I did feel confident that going through that game, Matt Ryan looked the most comfortable that I've ever seen him behind that O-line. He was dissecting things. He was looking good. I am happy with the fact that they went and brought him in. Originally, when Frank Reich made the decision that Ellinger was going to be the quarterback for the remainder of the season, I was hearing that as, okay, so we're just going to see if this kid's good enough to be on this team and be the starting quarterback of the future. If he's not, then we're going to go and get our guy. Now, I think regardless, the Colts have to go and get their guy this season, whatever it takes. I don't care, but you need to go do that. But it definitely is the right decision that Saturday made to put Matt Ryan back in, and that gave us the best chance to win. And I totally get that.
I respect that as a competitor because I don't think every coach would do that, and there's a lot of scrutiny, especially around the hire, not a lot of prior experience with coaching, not any experience, and the whole analyst to coach thing. So there's been a lot of scrutiny, but I respect the fact that he didn't go out there and just say, we're gonna, I guess, if you want to call it, tank and just see how it goes. But now he said, no, I want to earn the job. So I respect that. And one other thing I was thinking about Saturday is, I talked and I said, they don't have much to lose. On the other hand, what I will say though is it's going to be an interesting game for Colts fans as well, because we all know, right? That first game with a new coach, it's completely different. It's a spark of energy. You want to fight. You want to show, okay, that like the voice was lost from the last guy, right? So how are the Colts going to come out now? Are they going to come out fired again, like fired up again? Is Saturday, going to be competent, especially going up against a much better team? Like you said, you're going up against the Raiders, who have been an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at the same time, how are the Eagles going to react to adversity in terms of losing, And I personally believe some of the Eagles players, AJ Brown, Slay, they had their worst games of the season. So they're going to be fired up to come out, that all week they're talking and saying, finally, this 17-0 stuff is done. Like we can focus and get that off our backs and just go out and grind. So at the same time, I think it's going to be an interesting test for both teams. In completely different situations, but it should be intriguing for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, I said it on Twitter earlier today. I mean, we're going to find out what this Eagles team is made of after this week, right? Like sometimes you're on a huge win streak and then that loss can either break your team apart or it can rejuvenate your team, right? Yeah. And I agree with you. I think there's a lot of Eagles players that were probably on there thinking, I'm kind of happy we lost. So everyone can just stop talking to us about this undefeated crap. We're tired of hearing it. We just want to go play football. And maybe that monkey is off their backs now. Like, okay, fine, let's move. Let's go forward. Let's just go back to our game plan. And I think that you're right. The voice in the Colts locker room was lost throughout the whole season. Jeff Saturday, who, is a Colts great, right? And a former offensive line great. What better guy to bring in to fix an offensive line that has been uncharacteristically not itself in the highest fashion, right? Who's not going to listen to that guy about what it takes to be great, right? Like he knows what it takes. And even today, I mean, They're playing in Lucas Oil, so they're playing inside. But he has them practicing outside all week this week. It's cold in Indianapolis. It was snowing today, but they were practicing outside. And I think that's great because, you know, if it was anybody else, if it was probably Frank Reich, he'd probably have them practice inside because it's what it is. But Jeff Saturday said, no, this is a different standard here. We're going to weave out who wants to play and who doesn't. Because, you know, we know who's going to play if you're going to come out here in the cold, in the snow, and you play and you practice the way that you want to play. I think that's what's great is he's changing the locker room. And even Jonathan Taylor said it after the first week. He said he gave us passion again. Like we felt like this team just didn't have emotion a few weeks ago. But now it feels like there's a resurgence in the building. Like we know we can beat anyone. Like that's the feeling of the Colts right now. So, you know, that's a dangerous team to face when even if the Colts are bad, you know, a team that believes they can win against anyone, that's definitely something to be scared about.
Yeah, any given Sunday. And I will admit, I was definitely surprised, as everyone else was, when the hire went down. I mean, I didn't even know he was in the, coaching hire or, circle or whatever in terms of being up next. I know
Well, did you hear the story of how that went down?
I did not.
Irsay called him in the middle of the Patriots game. And Irsay's been friends with Saturday for a long time. I mean, after he left the building, Irsay always kept in contact with him because he was a staple of the Colts community. But yeah, he contacted him during the game saying, like, can you believe what's going on here? Like, what's going on with our team? What's this? And Jeff's like, dude, I'm not even watching this game, Jim. I'm watching other games because of ESPN right now. I gotta do this stuff. I haven't even gotten to the Colts yet. And so he calls him, and then later that night offered Jeff Saturday the job afterwards. Literally after the game, couldn't even wait till the end. Literally called him that night prior that, hey, do you want the job? And Jeff eventually said yes, and they fired Frank Reich the next morning. So, it was not a thing of there was a process. There wasn't. It was literally just Jim called Jeff Saturday, and he had contacted him a couple weeks prior to that. He's been calling him, like asking him what's going on with the team. But, it just came, and Jim just said, all right, well, I'm pulling the trigger here. We're bringing Jeff Saturday in. I don't care if he doesn't have coaching experience. I need somebody in the building I can trust. And right now, I don't know who to trust.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely unconventional. But sometimes you have to take those risks. Sometimes you have to go outside of your comfort zone a little bit. I was definitely surprised. But what I will say is hearing a little tidbit of the press conference he had, I think he handled it the right way, 110%. Like hearing him say, I don't know everything. I might not be the most competent, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to trust in everybody else. And what I'm going to do is bring confidence, kind of like you said, just like a little culture shock. I think that's the most important thing. Because like I said earlier, the Colts have talent. It's why everybody had expectations, or at least somewhat expectations for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need the new voice. And it just reminds me a lot of the whole Doug Peterson thing. I mean, again, a guy that won a Super Bowl and it was just lost. It wasn't there anymore. Like, Doug Peterson's a good coach. He's a good guy. It just wasn't it for that situation. And I think the same thing about Frank Reich. I don't know how you feel about him. I think he's a pretty good coach. Sometimes you overcomplicate things. You just need a new voice. So
yeah, I totally agree. I think that's the thing is sometimes I think people forget to realize that, you can have success, but sometimes the energy in the building just isn't there anymore and you just can't get it back.
Exactly.
Right. Like, I mean, that's why you see what happened with the Eagles, what's happening with the Colts now, right? Like guys have success, and people have respect for the guys in the building. But the problem is just because you have respect for somebody does not mean you want to play for them. And you don't want to do everything for them anymore. And that's the problem. And that's where we've run into now. But hey, listen, man, before I let you go, I got to get a score prediction out of you for this game. So give me your prediction for this game.
Wow, I haven't thought about that. I definitely have the Eagles putting up, I'd say, around 30 points. I do think they will bounce back. Now, I don't think it's going to be an easy, just blowout type of game. I do think the Colts will fight. Ultimately, though, I just think the Eagles are riled up in terms of trying to bounce back from a loss, and I think that they will rebound. I think this is a legit team. I don't think this is a shock that they were 8-0. I do have them bouncing back, so I'm going to say 30-22. I think the Colts will put up a fight, but ultimately, I just believe the Eagles are the better team, and I think Sirianni will have the boys ready to go. There were some blatant, just obvious mistakes that just don't happen in an Eagles game, especially this year. I think they'll get it corrected. But, like you said, those boys want to fight for Indianapolis. So I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch.
This is the first time, I think, since week 3 or week 4 that I feel hesitant to say that the opposing team's going to win. Because literally over the last 5 weeks, I have picked our opponent to win every time. And I just not felt confident about this team at all. It's the first time in a while that I feel this type of way. I'm still going to pick the Eagles to win this. I think they're going to win 28-20. Like you said, I think it could be a good fight. I think the Eagles still are just a better team.
Yeah.
But I will say this, if the Colts do win, I'm picking them to win every game the rest of the season. I don't care who the opponent is. Because if they find a way to beat the Eagles, the best team in the NFL right now, then they can beat anybody. So it'll be very interesting. But RB, my guy, thank you so much for coming on here, man. It is a pleasure to have you on. You and your channel, you've grown that thing. You've grown the hell out of it so much. And I'm glad to call you a friend, my guy. And I appreciate you coming on doing this with me.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. And I'm definitely going to have my eyes on the Colts for at least a little bit the rest of the year, see how they do and how this whole thing boils over now that the hype train is done with. How will they play consistently? But as always, I'll be watching your stuff, and you do a fantastic job, you and Cody. So shout out to Colts Nation. May the best team win. Let me just say the Eagles better win, or else some people are not me, but some people are going to start
we're going to have a bunch of your people coming into our comments this week talking their stuff. And I really hope we win, because if not, we're going to get a bunch of hate comments from your guys.
If the Eagles lose to Jeff Saturday in his second game without any prior experience,
they're gonna call for Nick Sirianni to be fired on the spot, bro.
They're already calling for Gannon to be gone. All right. They're calling after this last week. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. If he gives up more than 26, 27 points somehow to the Colts, man, heads are going to be turning. I'll tell you that right now. But
I can imagine, dude. Well, guys, let us know your thoughts on this game and everything else headed forward. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts. What's going on, everybody? Today, I wanted to talk to you about our sponsor, BetStamp. Now, I know what you're thinking. Derek, another betting app? What is so different about this one now? Well, I got to tell you guys, I'm not into online gambling a whole lot and bets online and everything, but I got to tell you, BetStamp is one of the coolest things I have ever seen in regards to betting online. The great thing about BetStamp is it allows you to see all the different odds from all different sports books and see which one provides you the best odds possible for any game or scenario you want to bet on for your pick versus some of the worst. BetStamp allows you to also buy and sell picks that you have without worrying about losing your money or having any issues with it. Believe me, it's all free. I mean, look at this, guys. You have an option for every game across all different kinds of leagues in a ton of different ways. You have baseball, you have college football, UFC, NBA, and NFL. Great for the NFL season now being here. And if I wanted to bet on this Tennessee Titans versus Buffalo Bills game, it shows me in real time what are the best odds, which sports book I'm going to get the best offer from versus some of the worst ones. Because why would you want to earn less money from PointsBet when you could be winning more from ProLine Plus? Again, a great thing that BetStamp offers you, allowing you to make more money for the same pick just with a different sports book. How easy is that? And the great thing is there's not just games. There's player props, there's game props, there's lines, there's live tracking. There's a ton of great ways to make bets and picks on BetStamp, guys. totally a cool thing to use. I highly encourage you check it out if you're into any kind of online betting. Even if you're not, give it a check. See what you like about it, because I think I actually enjoy using it. But the best way to get an edge on online sports betting is having multiple accounts at different sports books. Be sure to hit the BetLink page, betstamp.app/onboarding. Be sure to check out the BetStamp app or online, and be sure to use the referral code JUICE, plug in your state, and you'll get access to all their affiliates and their prices once you open up seeing all states lines. Be sure to check this out, guys. You won't want to miss it for the best odds on your next sports bet.